One in the top, you ain't gotta ask that. I be with a cash app, I be with a gang.
Yo, this is TJ from Northern Comeups, and today we're gonna present Kofi. Kofi, born Dainanjima, is a rapper, singer, producer, and songwriter from Scarborough, Ontario. At 25 years old, he's put out 2 EPs and 2 albums on Spotify, and enough singles to fill another of each. With this kind of track vault, it's safe to say he has something for everyone. Kofi's Spotify's soaring at 209,000 monthly listeners, with his most viewed song Comeup hovering just under the 6 million listen mark. Over his 5-year career in rap, Kofi collected features from some of North's best talents like Pressa, Jay Brown, Doovie, Ching, and Trey West. Kofi's the definition of consistency. With a clear understanding of track production and lyric writing, he developed a plan to launch his music to as many people as possible. He understood the business behind the music industry and learned that marketing and consistency are the keys to being successful. Over the span of 2019 to 2020, Kofi dropped 19 singles and a 6-track EP in rapid-fire style releases, dropping 1 track a month to up to dropping 4 tracks a month. This approach of unpredictability to the general public, but in reality, staying on track with his plans to keep the listeners on their toes, never knowing when Kofi will drop his next hit. It isn't just his marketing erudition that makes Kofi, it's his style and ability to make great R&B styled songs and flip the rapper switch with vivid and quick spit bars about his city and journey. He comes off as a storyteller in his Toronto set tracks 401 in Kingston, Scarborough, and the title track of his debut album, 100 Dark Nights. After listening to his discography up and down multiple times, I've picked 3 songs that I think would be good to show you what Kofi's about and how he sounds. The top 3 songs I'd recommend you to check out are Space Cadet,
I go straight to the top and no stopping it. Roll me my check and I pocket it. Up on road deal, I'm shopping it. I see it, I wanna copping it. Can't fall in love with no thought and bitch. She ain't making money, I'm dropping it. They call me a space cadet, but it's funny cause now my whip look like a rocket ship. Yeah.
Comeup,
I came up from the gutter, had nothing. I came up with my buddies, I'm ballin' now. FaceTime, little shorty, I'm calling. I cut her off cause I can't afford to fall in love.
and 21.
I swear to God, these streets, they ain't got love for anyone. My mama praying for my life cause I'm her only son. I hold my breathing just in case I ain't got another one. Cause these days the streets saying I'm lucky I reached 21. I swear to God.
Alright, I think it's time we talk a little more about Kofi and some of his history to catch you up to speed on him. Born and raised in Toronto's east side city of Scarborough, he comes from a Ghanaian bloodline. Growing up, music was a big part of his life, stating Akon and Sam Cooke as his favorites. Kofi's appreciation for different genres is deep with his music catalog, consisting of soul, reggae, country, classical, rock, and rap, just to name a few. With this type of musical background so young in his life, he quickly picked up writing music and lyrics. He learned piano at a young age and would even write musical scores for his school band. Kofi grew up as a shy kid and found his escape in life through music and sports, specifically volleyball. He played volleyball in high school and joined the Canadian men's junior national volleyball team. At a height of 6 foot 8 inches, he was a huge asset to the team, which made him stand out to scouts. During a tournament, he was recruited to join the UCLA volleyball team with a 4-year scholarship that would see him trade his Timbs for sandals in Los Angeles. During his time in LA, he played the sport he loved at the well-established university from 2017 to 2020 as a middle blocker, but he was still certain about pursuing music. Off the court, Kofi focused on meeting connections in the music industry and growing his track skill, even producing for Boogs. In the first year of his LA dorming, he began working on tracks and developing his sound before constructing his first track, Zombie, featuring Trey West. This was just the first push of the avalanche of music that would soon follow. In 2018, he dropped 3 singles, with a feature from Pressa on Out of the Way, and a 4-track debut EP called Tripolar, an honest take on his pride for his city and the love and loss of the women he's come across on his journey. The transition between Nobody and But You is a perfect way to close out a mastered debut EP and sounds so good on every listen. After an incredibly consistent first year, he hit the new year running with his breakout hit, Comeup. The determination of his first year's work brought the streams and centered them on Comeup. His time put in during his run before this track paid off, as Kofi can effortlessly switch from singer to rapper within the same breath, and is always an easy recommendation. The song touches on the comparisons of his Toronto upbringing, coming from nothing to his location drop in LA and being surrounded by the lavish customs of the West Coast. But no matter how far he would travel, he was a Toronto boy at heart, shouting out his family and friends and how the celebration was around the corner. Little did he know he was right. The track was a hit and the streams came pouring in. Over the 4-year span since the release of Comeup, it garnered just under 6 million listens and still holds the top spot of his discography. Kofi received the deserved praise for Comeup, but it only stoked the fire. Instead of celebrating his victory, Kofi stayed on his grind with an 11-track year where he wasn't afraid to try new things. Fast-paced tracks like Not Like You featuring Zoe, aka Lonzo Ball, and For That with heavy beats that you can't help but bop to. Bad Habit was a standout song for me with an acoustic and a simple drum beat that comes off as a Jamaican feel and works so well. He never strayed far from his track recipe of strong bars followed by him singing his hooks, which never failed. This is what would carry his music to the hands of Red Bull Records. After 15 singles and 1 EP released to Spotify, his talent was finally recognized, and he would sign with the Red Bull record label at the end of 2019. Now with a label and an established name in the rap scene, Kofi started working on a bigger project between the releases of his singles, a second EP titled Story of My Life. A 5-track EP telling stories on getting through the struggle of poverty by selling beats to make money while getting past failed relationships. The central topic that Kofi displays on 4 out of the 5 tracks is right girl, wrong time, whether it be their own demons or their differences in culture when talking to the women of LA. How he had to let go of the relationships but still carried the burden of keeping a small part of those connections. Kofi continued this storytelling approach, shedding insight on his past on Scarborough and 21, speaking on the vicious streets of Toronto firsthand. Being held up for his phone and the sounds of senseless violence in the form of gunshots ringing off in the night. The vividness comes from the truth and the pain in these first-hand experiences that he translates to the mic. He would go on to share more tales about Toronto on the lead track of his debut album, 100 Dark Nights. It's full of heart about hustling through cold and dark nights, dreaming about getting out of his cockroach-infested living space. Out of all of his previous features and collabs, I hold the second track of the album, Space Cadet, featuring Doovie as one of his best. He and Doovie talk about spending big over on Rodeo with lots of bars about the North intertwined. The rest of the album is filled with more tracks showcasing Kofi's talent of singing and rapping using well-written and elegant bars, with a perfect blend of piano backing most of the tracks. 2 months after the release of 100 Dark Nights, Kofi would put out a deluxe version of the album that included gems like Poppy, Pass Me the Blunt, Two to Door featuring TDU, and What If I Told You. After releasing his debut album, Kofi would go right back to the studio to start crafting his second album, Why Not? Following up to the release of the album, Kofi would drop 2 songs from the album early, Haunt Me featuring 2K Baby and On Me, to start building the hype for the release. The album is beautifully composed with soft beats and Kofi's vocals that carry on to 2 2s and Shut Down, before being hit with a beat that sparks the head nodding on In Here featuring Nuda 05. Kofi made a sequel to his second EP called Story of My Life 2 on the album, looking back on his life through dark nights and fake friends, and how all the dice rolling and risk paid off in the end. He shows his love for both acoustic and electric guitars on the 2 closing tracks, DJ and That's Why, and together they riff off each other beautifully. Kofi's an artist where it's hard to find a bad quality in his craft. He can sing, produce, rap, write, and when he brings it all together, we get unbelievable music. Outside of the music, he's a loyal Toronto kid that hopes to spark change in his city with regard to violence. He strongly believes in the power and talents that are present in his city, and how if only they as artists would focus on their music and make positive progressions, Toronto would have a leading chance of strong-arming the industry. I believe Kofi is the uniting front to get Toronto into the mainstream because he really does believe in his city and believes there's so much great music still undiscovered by the masses. We're still waiting for Kofi's first drop of 2023, but in the meantime, stream his newest release songs, Uninvited and I'm Yours, on Spotify at Kofi. I highly recommend listening to his Red Bull Records live sessions to get a chance to see his music come to life with a band behind him. Thanks for listening to me and tapping into the video. Make sure to follow Northern Comeups on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and all our socials. You can find Kofi and much more talent in our official Northern Comeups playlist. All the links to everything and everyone will be in the description below. My name's TJ, and this is Kofi.
You ain't gotta ask that. I be where the cash at. I be where the gang at. Some are getting cash, some are with the gang. Junkies buying dope, only time I seen the hand.